You talked about the neighborhood. I wanted to know, how do you see India positioning itself on the global stage in the coming years? And also, do you identify any challenges, any opportunities there?
So I think that's a very interesting question, because I really think that the next 25 years is our India's years. And I think, you know, this is primarily being driven, first and foremost, we must understand, by our economic rise. Our economic rise is now reaching a point of what we call as an inflection point of no return. Einstein used to call it the eighth wonder of the world, the power of momentum. What took us 60 years, I don't know if the British left us with an economy of $30 billion. It took us, in 2007, so about 60 years, we became $1 trillion. So it was taken 3 generations, grandfather, father, son, 3 generations to hit $1 trillion. From 2007 to 2014, we go to $2 trillion. So what takes 60 years becomes 7 years. From 2014 to 19, what takes 60 then 75 we become 3. Today we are crossed, COVID वगैरह नहीं होता तो we would have crossed, but today let's say we are at 4 trillion. So what we have achieved in the last 75 years, 4 trillion, we will achieve in the next 10. By 2034, we'll be an $8 trillion economy. And then, of course, depending upon how you extrapolate it, we'll be 15, 20 trillion. Now, if you look at the global scene, when we say US, China, then it's India, right? So in absolute, now we can argue, people will say, oh, per capita, etc., but leave aside that for the moment. I'm not talking about distribution. Just in the absolute power of India's economic potential creates a situation that India becomes really relevant. So that's one point. Then you interpolate with the fact that, you are 1.4 billion people, you are a nuclear power, you are all the hard stuff going along, which then you become a real contender. So I think, but the question to you is that where I see now in the next 25 years is India's emergence on the global table. India was not a player on the global table. India wasn't in the room, but now India is in the room. Now that India is in the room, there is a little bit of an adjustment. There is a little bit of discomfort on everybody's part, partly on India's part as well, because suddenly we realize we are being heard, right? We are being counted. We count. And we count because we've got the sort of the hard power, whether economic, military, political, etc. to do. So in Japan, there was a big article saying that India could end up brokering the Russia-Ukraine war thing. So now India counts. So that's one. But there's a little bit of adjustment. There is a little bit of adjustment by the other constituents also, because suddenly they've got this person who they earlier told what to do. Now sitting on the table. Also, if you take back 300 years of colonization, you're the first colonial slave power that has actually reached that high table, right? That's a big deal. Out of 200 countries, and colonization destroys nations. Destroys. You just have to travel through Africa, through the Middle East, through even Southeast Asia to look what it does to you. So now that you have arrived, you are in the big boys game. So now in the big boys game, I think there will be a new equilibrium, but India is getting there based on many of its positive factors. Of course, India has its own vulnerabilities as well. It's not a done deal, but I don't see us being irrelevant to this conversation. So whether it is foreign policy, whether it's economics, whether it's military affairs, whether it's geopolitics, whether it's even elections, whether it's even movies, whether it's even cultural influence, right? Even in sports, we're just going to see the same kind of inflection that we hadn't seen, and it won't be linear. It will be exponential. It won't happen that you will see that India won no medals, then India won 3, then India won 30, then India won 300. And then you'll say, well, how did this happen? Because things catch momentum, just like I was giving you the economic numbers. So you will see that happen more and more. And sometimes when it will not happen that much, you will feel a bit disappointed. But now your bar is getting set higher. So that's what I really now see in the next 25 years for India as a country globally.
That's a very heartening picture that you have painted for us. It's great actually. But just to balance it a little bit, the challenges that we face on the way to that progress goal?
So the first challenge that we face, I think, is that, there is a certain Indian way of thinking, where that we tend to start celebrating before we arrive there. Right? We have this tendency to believe that we are, and therefore we go home. Right? Sab to ho gaya sab. So I think that is the first thing, that we should run ahead of ourselves, as you rightly said. There is this story for the taking, but it still requires a few important things for us to happen. The first and the foremost is that while we have a huge population, we have to improve at every level the quality of our manpower. That is this number तभी फायदे के हैं जब वो quality है. It's not just quantity, because we are moving. Quantity has its advantages, but it is up to a certain point. After that, you need to get into the quality game. वहाँ पे whether it is our human development index, our health, our literacy, our education, our technologies, our public infrastructure, everything. तो हमको माइक्रो में भी बहुत काम करना है. I think that remains our big vulnerability. From that, and that reflects in every aspect of our story. For example, आपके पास 1 मिलियन लोग वर्कफोर्स ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं हर महीने, 12 मिलियन साल में, ठीक है. इनको आप जॉब कैसे दोगे? तो एम्प्लॉयबिलिटी भी कछो. फिर आप नेक्स्ट सवाल है क्या, आर दे एक्चुअली एम्प्लॉयबल? क्या उनकी क्वालिटी ऑफ एजुकेशन ये है या क्वालिटी ऑफ ट्रेनिंग ये है? सो बट देन यू नीड टू गो बैक कि उनकी क्या सेकेंडरी एजुकेशन ठीक थी, फिर उनकी क्या प्राइमरी एजुकेशन ठीक थी. अगर प्राइमरी एजुकेशन से कहेंगे तो प्राइमरी एजुकेशन कैसे, उनका हेल्थ ही ठीक थी. फिर आप कहते हो उनकी मदर की हेल्थ ठीक थी कि उनका पास वो तो गेम तभी हार गए थे जब वो पैदा हुए थे. सो you've got to be able to tackle this as one big challenge, and I think this remains that as more and more resources become available. देखिए जैसे जैसे हिंदुस्तान की इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ होगी ना, हिंदुस्तान वेदर इट वांट्स इट और नॉट अपनी थिंकिंग में पुअर है, पर रिसोर्सेज में पुअर नहीं है. वो नेचुरल है ना. अब अब $1 ट्रिलियन आप हर साथ करें, अब तो आ ही रहा है हर, मतलब अब तो इंटरेस्ट पे इंटरेस्ट आ रहा है. तो लेकिन अब आप उस रिसोर्सेज का करते क्या हो? अब आप क्या उसमें से डीप कैपेसिटीज और कैपेबिलिटीज बिल्ड करते हो कि जिसकी बेसिस पर वो सस्टेन हो सके. तो एक हमको मैन पावर पे बहुत मैसिव इन्वेस्टमेंट्स करने पड़ेंगे, एंड वी विल हैव टू बी इनोवेटिव कि आने वाले टाइम के लिए हम कैसे उसको तैयार करते हैं. सेकंड, हमको अपनी जो जिसे हम कहते हैं हमारी एक वल्नरेबिलिटी कंटिन्यूज इज आवर what I would call is कि हमारी जो, we have done a great job in this कि as a nation we have interwoven ourselves very well in the last 75 years, and tributes to how you just have to look. You're asking a question of Bangladesh, just look. I mean, a country like India, we take all these things for granted. So we've done a pretty good job, but we can't let the eye off the ball. हमको another 25 साल चाहिए to bring all kinds of harmony in the country. Regional harmony, social harmony, communal harmony, because we need that kind of stability for the nationhood to completely cement itself. So I think अगले 25 साल वो भी एक challenge रहेगा, because as development happens, as growth happens, there are possibilities that certain kind of fissures may start appearing. So for example, the southern states are growing at a rate which is far faster than the northern states, and but the votes are in the northern states. So you're feeling that they feel politically disenfranchised. So will that lead them to feel that they are contributing more and getting less? So things like that. So that's the second part. So you got to grow the individual, spend on the human side, spend on the or spend matlab think through how are you going to bring in social harmony. Third, sustainable development. Because now that we are talking about the quantum of numbers, the landmass that we have is still very small for the number of people that we have. I wish we had a bigger hinterland like Soviet Union or China, but we have what we have. So isko we have to sustain this very well, because अगर इसने future generations के लिए सस्टेनेबल रहना है और इस इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ को सस्टेन करना है इस इंजन को, तो इसका जो कंजर्वेशन और इसका जो इन्वायरमेंटल एस्पेक्ट है वो हमारे लिए एक बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज है. मतलब हम किसी भी चीज़ में देखिए आज हमारा इंपोर्ट बिल ऑफ एनर्जी has become 85%. This is unsustainable. So we have to go for sustainable solutions to our economic growth.